Every interface that we use to communicate with devices requires physical touch or some sort of means to interact with it. For those who have upper limb disabilities, this is not accessible. Inside. Oh, this side, you go back, it's fine. Thank you. But first, before we talk about potential solutions, let's really understand who it is that we're talking about today. We're talking about persons with upper limb disabilities. By that I mean people who have amputees, upper limb amputations, people who have congenital deformities on an upper limb, or people who have motor control disabilities. With that said, let's see what we learned when we interviewed these people directly. The key things that we understood that were problems for them when it came to actually using devices and participating in digital society were two main things. First of all, the existing solutions that they had, like prosthetics, were non-functional. The functional varieties that would move the way that the user wants them to move would cost over $10,000, $20,000, completely inaccessible. And the ones that were accessible were so useless to the point that all of the people interviewed said that they just left it to the side. They didn't even use it. So functionality is the first part. And the second thing is cost. So let's see how we can solve that. Next slide, please. Our solution is simple. We're proposing a wearable device, such as the one that I'm holding here. This is one of our prototypes. And this wearable device, when the user puts it on, either on a functioning limb or on a residual limb, allows them to use their movements and gestures to control software. So instead of them having to touch a keyboard or touch screen, which will be difficult for them, simply by doing movements, our AI layer that we've trained, completely proprietary, recognizes what gestures and movements they make and actually allows them to then control any other digital system they connect to. And the best part is it's not just about the functionality that we provide, but furthermore, it's about the fact that it's a universal solution. Our open API, which has been tested against things like ROS with great performance, we've actually published a paper about that, not to brag, but that connectivity allows us to connect to all software solutions and hardware solutions, meaning that with one device, a user doesn't have to switch between a remote and controller. With one device, through movement, they can control the entire digital world around them. So let's move on to our demo. If you could pull up the video, please. Yeah. So in this demo, if you were here yesterday, you'll see it's a bit different because I want to take you through the journey that Gyronics has gone through. Not just what we're presenting now, where we came from and where we're going. So let's play. As you can see, this is an early demo we had, actually while we were interning at NCIR, which is under NINTA, National Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. And you can see the device being used to control hardware solutions like rovers and robotic arms. This was the initial prototypes that we had. And then later on, after developing devices that could control other physical devices, we then moved on to gesture recognition with the high-performance AI layer that we trained from scratch. And as you can see here, it's highly accurate and it's modeling exactly what the user is doing. And where we're going in the future is this. Something where someone with a disability can use, and through simple movements, they can control any physical or software-based apparatus around them. Let's move on. So here's the size of the market. It's just here to show you the potential of this technology and the applicabilities of gesture-controlled wearables. Let's move on. And so the reason why Gyronics is so effective is because we don't just provide a solution that only works for a certain class of people, whether those people are rich enough to afford a solution or whether they have some sort of functionality that works within pre-existing conditions. We don't subscribe to a one-size-fits-all approach. Let's move on. And so the biggest problem that I think we're all realizing is that if it's a hardware device, it's going to be expensive. It's going to cost money, and that money may not be available to those who actually need the device most. So our solution is using existing distribution systems that already provide persons with upper limb disabilities with items like prosthetics and other assistive technology here in Nigeria. By leveraging the fact that we can create a solution that works better for persons with disabilities, we can use those existing networks to deliver our devices directly to those who need them. Let's move on. Here's just some device sales projections. We can move on. We can move on. And here's some traction. So we've developed and shown this device around. As I mentioned, we published a paper, and we have a high accuracy AI model with regards to the gestures. Let's continue. And so here's our team. Our team has experience at places like Swisscom, Huawei, and other high engineering areas. and we are experienced researchers both in electronics, embedded systems, and AI. Let's move on. And so what do we actually need to achieve what we want to achieve? We have a solution, and we know that for accessible solutions, it's not enough for it to simply work. It's not enough for it to simply be an alternative pathway for people to use the device. We believe that if the devices that we create for people are not going to enable them to be as effective as anybody else, we can't say that we've achieved true equality. And so we need three things. First of all, we need partnerships with organizations that work directly with persons with disabilities so that we can test and iterate our devices. Furthermore, we could use funding. That would be very useful in terms of that research that we're ongoing and continuing to do. And finally, go-to-market partnerships with experienced vendors that would enable us to actually take our innovation to the market in a completely licensed and regulatory manner. So let's move on. And here we want to say thank you, not just for everyone listening, but the NCC for this opportunity. We don't take it lightly. And we would be very glad for you guys to visit our website so you can see more of the innovations that we're doing and join us when it comes to democratizing accessibility to the digital world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that impressive presentation. But I would like to take a pause and introduce the Executive Commissioner, Stakeholders Management of the NCC, Ms. Remini.
With our 112, and it will be targeting persons with disabilities. He has just presented, and this is the second presenter, Akko. Axel, he has just finished presenting, and we have the panel of judges asking questions to see, to understand fully better his solution. So that's where we are going to now. Thank you very much. So panel of judges, any questions?
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome our ECSM. Yesterday we had, you made the presentation and we asked you some questions, of course. But the major thing I want to ask, your demonstration, your demo, I can take it as a concept demo, which has shown that yes, the concept is possible for it to work. However, I'm still yet to see a working prototype. What you had demonstrated, yes, the concept is possible to have that, but like one of my colleagues has mentioned, George has mentioned, he has seen you in several shows and hackathons, and you've presented the same solution, this particular solution, let me say. So what is stopping you from, for all those time, from having a working prototype that we can say, yes, this is the device and it only needs ABC to produce? So that's one of the questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. It's a very fair question. Obviously, with the hardware wearable, it does take a longer time to develop, especially since we're doing software at the same time with the AI model. There have been improvements with the prototype over time, and we have tested it in real life with people, but it's been in limited tests so far. The main reason we're actually here is so that we can actually get a partnership so we can work directly with people to test far more extensively than we've been able to do in the past. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to show a demo live in person, but the device is functional. However, setting it up gave us a lot of troubles last night. That's essentially what I was doing before coming here. But again, it's a very valid criticism, but that is again why we're here. We need to be able to get it in people's hands to be able to test it more accurately so that we can develop. We've done some of that in the past, and we actually, yes, last night I was actually received really good news that we'll actually have an opportunity to do that soon in the future again. But we need a larger scale involvement by an institutional partner to enable us to take this to the next level.
Thank you, Axel. I think it's a great idea. The question I would like to ask you is, what happens if the user's gestures and the AI gives a wrong answer?
Right. So the AI, luckily in this case, because it's not a mission-critical AI. If the AI does give an incorrect value, it's not a life-threatening situation as it could be if, for example, this was some sort of automation AI for like a plane or a car. That said, we don't want inaccuracies because whatever the user is doing is very important to them. So, for example, if you're doing work or something like that, we do try to reduce accuracies. In fact, we've trained. I wasn't able to go into great detail to the length that we've gone to with our AI systems to make sure that they're effective. But we've trained many adversarial models with our existing models to basically do gesture validation, to make sure that a gesture that's been made is actually what was intended by the user. And so we've collected lots of data that over I want to say 6,000 samples that we've collected, and we've trained models to do that. So when the device is running, it's not just does the user do this gesture, it's also did the user intend to do this gesture within the context that the device has at the moment. So we've trained AI to do that, and in the few cases where an error is made, the user can simply undo and they can continue using the device as is. But again, we try to reduce errors as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation again. I want to ask straight, your arm is wonderful for persons with disability, with those are amputee, and also persons with disability, maybe with low income makers. How affordable is this device for them?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, the key consideration isn't just whether the solution is viable or even if the solution exists, but rather how accessible is that solution to those who need it. And this is why we thought of an extensive period to come up with the distribution strategy that we have gone. So of course, I think as was even mentioned yesterday, there are many people in the community who may be persons with disabilities, but would still have the means to afford the device at a reasonable price, right? And so for those users, we can sell directly. For those who cannot, we can work on plans that help subsidize that, again, with the vendors that are already providing them with existing assistive technology. In fact, with all of the interviews we've had with people with upper limb disabilities, luckily, close to after for a lot of them who had accidents that made them become amputees, relatively soon after they were given, they're able to access assistive devices like prosthetics through corporate social responsibility and other NGOs that play a factor in these cases. And so the key consideration for us is, can we convince them that the device that we're offering provides greater value than some of the existing technology that's being provided to them, which, as I mentioned in our interviews, also were not very useful to them, so much so that they would leave those solutions completely. So that's basically our main task, but we're confident that we would be able to get it into the hands of those who need it most. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all from us.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So the second